Alright, this is Nate Brown here. Nate Brown Sports Talk with my last mock draft, 4.0, before the draft next week. The draft is closely approaching. I'm pretty excited. This is my 4.0, my mock draft. Probably the most accurate with the people rising and whatnot, getting people where they need to be in the draft. My draft doesn't include the trades that could happen, which will probably happen. So these are just a straightforward picks 1 through 32, all in this video right now. So we're going to begin with the Kansas City Chiefs. I am picking Joeckel, the offensive tackle out of Texas A&M. Obviously the best player out there. Best tackle, pro ready, be able to play from day one, be a great addition to that Kansas City Chiefs squad. Move on to the Jacksonville Jaguars with the second overall pick. I'm picking Dion, the defensive end / outside linebacker out of Oregon. He's a versatile player, can play standing up and have a hand on the ground, kind of like an old Owen Smith out of the 49ers. The Oakland Raiders, third, Sharrif Floyd, the D-tackle out of Florida, the best defensive lineman in this draft. Very gifted, very powerful, gets off the line quick, gets in the backfield easily, disrupts plays, pass, everything. He's a great player, and the Oakland Raiders will love to add him. I'll move on to the Philadelphia Eagles at 4. I'm picking Eric Fisher, the offensive tackle out of Central Michigan. There are some reports that they're going to pick Geno Smith. I just don't see that happening here. It could, obviously, but I'm not a fan of that happening in this draft. I'm picking Eric Fisher, second best offensive tackle, right up there with Joeckel for the best. Had great pro day, great combine, everything, top of the line offensive tackle. Move on to Detroit Lions. Previously I had him picking D. Milliner, but I feel like their offensive line needs more help than their defense does. So I've been picking Lane Johnson, the offensive tackle out of Oklahoma. A great tackle yet again. This is a great draft for offensive tackles. A lot of teams need them. Picking Lane Johnson here early is going to be helping the Lions get past that hump that they went back down to after their playoff season. Moving to the Cleveland Browns at 6, I've been picking Ezekiel Ansah, the defensive end / outside linebacker at BYU. His stock is rising quickly. He's a great player, explosive around the corner, disrupts plays. Little undershadowed, I guess you could say, but his stock is rising. And then the Browns are switching to a 3-4. So they'd love to have a player like him to help them transition well into the 3-4. So move on to the Arizona Cardinals at 7. I've been picking Geno Smith. I know they traded for Carson Palmer, but Carson Palmer isn't going to be in the league forever and hasn't had too good of seasons the last 2 seasons there in Oakland. I think Carson will at least start half the season, and if they draft Geno will come in halfway through the season, maybe even next season. I'll just have someone for the backup there in the future. So I move down to the Buffalo Bills at 8. I have an E.J. Manuel, a quarterback out of Florida State. Again, they have Kevin Call, but he hasn't done much either in his career, and having a great, young, talented quarterback behind him is definitely going to add the pressure, and eventually E.J. Manuel will take over. Moving to the New York Jets at 9, I have been picking star Lotuelelei, the nose tackle out of Utah. Once projected to be number 1 overall pick. Great talent. Very powerful, very explosive, draws double teams all the time, frees up other defenders. Just a gifted player. His heart condition or whatever he has there has him dropping, but again he's rising again. Earlier he was in the 20th, now he's up back to the top 10. Great addition to the New York Jets. He's going to be a great nose tackle there in the 3-4. Move on to 10, the Tennessee Titans. D. Milliner. They'd probably be very happy in Tennessee if D. Milliner drops a 10. Obviously the best corner in the game, lockdown, ball hawk, as good as it comes. Dropping a 10 would be kind of odd, but if you think about it, cornerbacks usually aren't picked that early in the draft. Titans need one. I don't see the only spot else I can see him, or maybe the Lions at 4. Lions at 5 or Browns at 6. So move on to the San Diego Chargers at 11. I've been picking Chance Warmack, the offensive guard out of Alabama. They need help with their offensive line, keeping Ryan Matthews healthy, keep Phillip Rivers on his feet, throwing balls without getting hit and throwing interceptions. They need to help that offensive line if they're going to transition forward. It's just something they needed to focus on this draft. Move on to 12 for the Miami Dolphins. I've been picking DJ Fluker, the offensive tackle out of Alabama. Fluker's talent is rising. He's a great player. Played 4 years at Alabama with a fifth-year senior. Has that experience there with 3 national championships. Is a great player, great teammate. I think he's going to fit well in the Dolphins as they made those offensive acquisitions and help them move forward. Move on to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They're picking Sheldon, Richardson, defensive tackle out of Missouri. Of course, they addressed that safety issue with during the offseason, and they need to help their defensive more. Their offense is a pretty decent offense. So if you add proper defensive keys, it's going to help. Richardson's a great defensive tackle. Again, powerful, draws double teams, explosive, gets in the backfield. Move on to the Carolina Panthers. I'm going to pick Xavier Rhodes, the cornerback out of Florida State. I could go wide receiver here too, but they've been looking for a high-profile cornerback for quite some time now, and Rhodes is the second best in this entire draft. So snagging him here would help that Carolina Panthers team. Move on to the New Orleans Saints. I've been picking Barkevious Mingo. Mingo's stock has fallen. I once had him as a second overall pick in my last 2.0 and 3.0 drafts. Now he's here at, I think it's 15, which is a far drop, but he's an outside linebacker / DN, so you got to find that 3-4 defense for him to fit into, and the Saints run that. He's a great player, very explosive, gets around the corner, but he's just trying to find the team that wants 3-4 DN / outside linebacker like that. So we move on to the St. Louis Rams with their first pick. I've been picking Jonathan Cooper, the offensive guard out of North Carolina. Cooper's second best guard in the draft, very talented, going to help that Rams squad. They're young, moving forward with some pickups in the free agency, and just need to keep everyone on their feet going forward. Move on to the Pittsburgh Steelers at 17. I still haven't picked them. Jarvis Jones, also linebacker, D-end out of Georgia. I just think it's a perfect fit. There's nothing better than, if you think of Jarvis Jones, you think of Pittsburgh Steelers. To be honest, that's what I do. And I think it'd be just a perfect fit for him to end up in Pittsburgh. And Pittsburgh has the reputation of picking good defensive players and transition to great in the NFL. So move on to the Cowboys at 18. I've been picking Kenny Vaccaro, the safety out of Texas. Again, they're looking for that high-profile safety. Vaccaro is the best in the draft. Picking him up here is basically a need for the Cowboys that have been burnt all last season. So move on to the New York Giants down here at 19, I do believe. Yep. I've been picking Bajon Warner, defensive end out of Florida State. The defense of the Giants wasn't too impressive last year. Warner's a great end, a traditional defensive end, the 4-3 aspect, coming around the corner. Probably could draw a few double teams. If not, he's still playing with some great defensive talent there in New York, and when he's freed up, I can see him having a good rookie season if he ends up in New York. So we move on to Chicago Bears at 20. I'm thinking Cordero Patterson, the wide receiver out of Tennessee. The best wide receiver in the draft, very talented, explosive, great hands, great route runner. The Bears would be ecstatic to put him alongside Brandon Marshall there in Chicago, a great 1-2 threat there. It'd be perfect for the Bears and Jay Cutler. Move on to the Cincinnati Bengals at 21. I'm picking Matt Elam, the safety out of Florida. Elam and Vaccaro are similar players, great ball hawking skills. The Bengals defense was not that good last year. It was getting better, so you had a great their secondary is what staggered their defense. So you had a great power in the secondary, and expect them to become a better team. So we move on to the St. Louis Rams pick through Washington. I'm picking Alec Ogletree, the inside linebacker out of Georgia. Again, you need that strong middle linebacker to help out your team. Basically, one of the linebackers, the captain of the defense, calls the plays and whatnot. So you need a smart, gifted player there, and Alec Ogletree is that player. Great player. Would fit in well in St. Louis. So we move on to the Minnesota Vikings. I'm picking Sylvester Williams, defensive tackle out of North Carolina. Sylvester's stock is quickly rising. A few weeks ago, he'd be unheard of. Now he's in the top 30, or 25 picks here. Great talent. Explosive, big-bodied, powerful, great fit there in Minnesota. So move on to the Colts now. I'm picking Dante Jones, the defensive end D tackle out of UCLA. He can play both those D and D tackle positions. Great explosive player. The Colts need help. Fitting him there would be perfect. Move on to the Vikings. Pick via the Seattle Seahawks. I have them picking DeAndre Hopkins, the wide receiver out of Clemson. Of course, they lost Sidney Rice. Not Sidney Rice. I lied. My mind is blanking right now. But anyways, they needed to get a wide receiver to fit in there. Hopkins has amazing hands, probably the best hands in this entire draft. He's not too fast, but you don't need to be fast when you have great hands. Throwing him here, catching passes from Christian Ponder. He's going to be a great fit in Minnesota. It's Percy Harvin, by the way. That's what I'm thinking of. Anyways, move on to the Packers. I've been picking Tyler Everett, the tight end out of Notre Dame. Best tight end in the draft. Everyone's seen what the Saints and even the 49ers of Vernon Davis, the New England Patriots are done with tight ends. I think that's what they can do here with Everett, especially with Aaron Rodgers throwing the football. It'll just be a perfect fit for Green Bay. So move on to the Texans. I've been picking Tavon Austin, the wide receiver out of West Virginia. Kind of projected to be the best overall wide receiver with speed, hands, all that. But he'd be a great fit in Texans going opposite. Yeah, I can't think today. Anyways, the Texans need Andre Johnson. Opposite Andre Johnson, they need someone that can stretch the field, take the defense away from Andre, so they can get him more balls, plus they'll get Austin open. It's going to be a great fit there in Houston. Move on to the Denver Broncos. I would pick him Demontre Moore, the defensive end out of Texas A&M. Of course, they lost Elvis Dumerville in the awkward situation. They need to replace him, help that defense with adding the same amount of pressure Dumerville might add, so everyone can still strive there on the Broncos' defensive side of the ball. The New England Patriots, I would pick him Jamar Taylor, the cornerback out of Boise State. Taylor's stock is rising yet again. He was basically unheard of 2 or 3 weeks ago to most people. He's a very talented, quick wide receiver, can hang really fast, can hang with the best or the fastest wide receivers in the league. I said wide receiver with cornerbacks. Be great there in New England as they need to help that secondary. Move on to the Atlanta Falcons. At 30, I'm picking Desmond Trufant, the cornerback out of Washington, the big-bodied, physical cornerback who has decent speed. The Falcons are a few pieces away from a Super Bowl run, and adding a person like Desmond Trufant is going to help. Move on to the San Francisco 49ers at 31. I'm picking Jonathan Serapin, safety out of Florida National. The 49ers desperately need a safety. Not really desperately. They added players in the offseason. Of course, they say goodbye to their star, John Goldson. They just need a young safety to come in there, help develop, become the safety of the future there in San Fran. Let's move on to the Baltimore Ravens with the 32 overall pick. I've been picking Keenan Allen, the wide receiver at Cal, very fast wide receiver. The Ravens have a lot of spots to fill after all their key departures in the offseason. I guess a wide receiver is going to help their offense. I mean, they gave all that money to Joe Flacco and lost all the receivers he used to throw to. So that's about that. So those are my picks 1 through 32, my last mock draft before the actual draft. I'll run a video after the draft showing how accurate my picks are, also reviewing the steals, the busts, the good picks, the bad picks, all that good stuff after the draft, which is next week starting Thursday. If you're not excited, you're not a football fan. Anyways, thank you for watching. Comment with your opinions. Subscribe to my page. Do what you want. Thank you.